I want to make sure that I'm the same online, offline, when you meet me, when, so, and if someone else hears about me, like, so that's your influence. Your influence is not just on social media. Like that's the thing with the industry. It's like, well, I'll put on this mask. It's like, but yeah, but who are you when you go home? Like, who
Yeah.
are you when you go home? So I think, and why that's good energy is because then you attract the right people, you attract the right opportunities, you attract what's meant for you when you are yourself. And I think that's the best kind of influence, because you're kind of influencing yourself to be authentic in a sense too. So
So good. Yeah. The word I was thinking of, like influence associated to integrity. And that if there's not that alignment, if there's misalignment there, what you influence is coming to you. I found out recently through Sarah Jakes Roberts, who is TD Jakes' daughter, very world renowned pastor. And his daughter had like pretty wild testimony. I think we all do in some way, shape, or form, right? And it was just abnormal to what you would anticipate a world renowned pastor having as a child's journey. And yet at the same time, it's been used for such greatness. And she was talking about this idea of influence, and that the root word actually means to flow. And so if the root word of influence is to flow, what we're projecting out of there is likely going to flow back to us, which is why I think when the influence doesn't have that good intention, ultimately whatever is flowing back to you will kill, steal, and destroy the hope of what that harvest could look like if what you're putting out into the world is exactly what you want to receive back, right? We know that like age-old saying of like, treat others how you want to be treated. And yet people are trying to wear these masks. And I think I innately think that people have goodness inside of them, that they're trying to do what is right. But yet maybe their not even goals, their aspirations are muddied because of what it appears to be success is, right? Or influence is. And they don't know that what's going to come to them on the other side of that mask is not so great, not so good, not so fulfilling. It's why you see people in Hollywood or in any realm of financial success, I see mostly, there's still that sense of void of not really living a life of full integrity and not really living a life filled with true joy. Have you, in your experience, especially even in the writing realm, because I know you also still contribute to Entrepreneur Magazine, you still contribute to these other pieces, when you're writing and you're teaching from your lens and knowing you've been associated to so many different genres of people of influence, and perhaps whether earned or not, talk to us about like, what does that navigation look like for you to remain rooted? How can we remain rooted in the ways of the world being so influential, good or bad?
the lens, what the lenses, are you living or are you surviving? So let's talk about that for a second. There was a point where I was in survival, being a single mom. I was like, oh my God, I need to pay rent, or I need to pay for
Yeah.
food. And
Yeah.
that was a scary lens to be in. And I could have easily wound up on the wrong side of influence too. Having a podcast and having that influence when Entrepreneur Magazine came out, I was like, oh my God, I can make so much money. I was like, here we
True.
go.
True.
I'm just doing it. And I have a
Ramping up.
friend, I was like, here we go. And I have a friend who keeps me very grounded. Well, not just one. I think it's good to have grounded people around you. So when you ask them these questions, like, hey, this opportunity came up, and they're like, wait, what lens is this? Right? Is it the long game or
Good.
is it survival? So
Good.
for me, I just got to the point where I had to stop being afraid to live. If you're afraid to live, you're afraid to surrender. Like, when you're in survival mode, you're constantly trying to make a quick buck, or you're doing something for the wrong reasons because you're still in survival. And while you may get ahead sometimes and you may get far, you're robbing your soul and your spirit ultimately. So it doesn't matter what you have in the bank, your spirit's robbed completely, right?
Ooh, she's
So
preaching, y'all.
so for me, it was really that lens, like, is this survival or living? And it got to the point where I just had to live. Like, scary moments, great, here they come, but I'm living, I'm not going backwards. And it's really about the lens. And I think that's why people like working with me. And I think it's because I'm living and aligning, truly aligning. I really think it's the lens of how you view your life, survival or living.
It's so good. And I have like two different things. One, because of my photography background, but also even from the highlight reels or the filters, right? There's the lens of like even what you're experiencing with my video right now. There's like a focal point. The focal point, it's trying to be me. Sometimes it's trying to be my earrings. I haven't really figured it out, but like the back is blurry. And so I'm not afraid to like show my blemishes, but what's behind me is still coming into being because it's either behind me or it's not meant for you to really see fully. And then there's this variable of the filters, right? Where everything behind you is crystal clear and like your face isn't fully who you intend to be. Or when I see that person then in real life, I'm like, oh, I always thought your cheekbones did this interesting thing. Or like, that's not really how I imagine your makeup would look because it's not real. And so, like, focal point versus like filters, I think that there's a whole conversation that could unravel as far as metaphors go to how we live our life. Like, what are you wanting people to be so fixated on that's actually perhaps not it's a false reality, right? Or are you really allowing people to see all of you, blemishes included, that then create that sense of authenticity, integrity, and really, like I said, back to flow? It includes influence when I think that we can be all of who we are, sharing the hard moments just as much as we do the celebration, and having people around us that are willing to say the hard things and put us in check is pretty valuable. You hear the Jim Rohn quote, you're the sum of the five people that you surround yourself with. And I believe in that full fledgedly. I'm curious, when you're, looking for clients or in the process of that, I've learned that I don't have to say yes to everyone, right? Because they
Yeah.
influence me as much as I influence them. How have you navigated who you're working with, who you also want to put your name behind as a conscious media, agency?
My energy will tell me.
Mm,
My energy will tell me.
yeah.
Again, survival or living. Like if I'm like, oh my God, this person's going to pay me so much money. If that's the thought I'm having, I'm probably not aligned. If I'm having the thought of, wow, we can serve and do so much together, then I'm probably aligned. So again, I have to check my lens and I have to check my scarcity and my intention and why I'm working with the people I'm working with. If I ever and it's funny because I am human, I'm not perfect, so anyone listening, don't
Yeah.
think I have it
Of
all
course.
figured out. Let me just, like, rewind for a second. I know I'm great at preaching, but I have moments, okay? Like,
Pop the bubble. This is real life.
yeah. So, if I'm offered a big deal, which I
Yeah.
have been,
Sure.
just the past month, 2 people, um, 2 really big clients, and it didn't fall through. And it didn't fall through because, again, I had to check my lens and I had that thought of, wow, that's a lot of money. Now, here's the thing, when you're offered these things and you go back into survival, the universe will kind of smack you on the wrist and say, catch yourself. Like, you did it again. Like, are you living or surviving? Right. So, those 2 clients actually didn't fall through because, again, I went back into a little bit of scarcity and, oh my God, these are really big clients. Right. And it happens. And I think the more we get, and this is why I have the money frequency show, coming from being a single mom who had no money and had to learn how to make money, even though I'm comfortable financially now, my nervous system will sometimes go back into, you need money, right?
Yeah.
Even though I'm
Yeah.
perfectly fine, it's our
Yeah.
nervous system. We're humans, right?
Yeah.
So you have to catch yourself all the time when you operate like that. And if not, the universe and God will always be there to be like,
Yes,
check
I will
yourself.
remind you.